Hi everyone, I'm Trisha Morris from Club Scrap and welcome to the Butterflies Boxes Workshop. I'm so excited to share this project with you. But before we get started, I just want to give a quick shout out of gratitude to Kate Griswold, who has organized a year's worth of inspiring events for all of us. I know that these events have kept me on track for continuing to create new and fresh projects, and it's been a great year for me too. Let's get started. Now these are the little boxes that are going to be great for your handmade holiday gift giving. Anybody would love to receive a little box like this that contains 4 custom greeting cards. Beautiful, each one for different occasions. The in and outside of each one is decorated, and each box includes 4 envelopes. And I always think it's more efficient. As long as you have everything out and you have all the supplies you need, why just make 1? Let's go ahead and make 2. Now we did have a kit available and supplies are limited, but we should still have this available for you to pick up if you'd like to make this exact project. And I've also got my trimmer and my accordion pocket file organizer handy. Now I'll be putting items into one of 4 of these pockets labeled A, B, C, and D. If you don't have this, reach out. We can help get you set up to make one for yourself. And in the meantime, just maintain 4 piles labeled A, B, C, and D. Now from this particular kit, we've included 8 sheets of paper plus a sheet of cut-aparts. So the first pieces we'll trim will be the aqua, and then we'll cut the white, followed by a navy, and then our beautiful butterfly print, and finally the cut-aparts that help us decorate the cards. Now if you prefer to stamp your own sentiments onto these pieces, go ahead and follow my instructions to trim them apart, and then just stamp your own sentiments on the free and included plain side of those cut-aparts. So now that I have my papers sorted in the order I'm going to trim them, I'm going to just go ahead and cut 2 at a time. And I'm on step 1 of my instructions, which you can find at the link that we'll share. So before I begin trimming, I just want to double check the grain direction of the paper to make sure that when I fold the paper in the future, I'm cooperating with the grain direction so I avoid those ugly crumpled folds. And I want the grain dipping easily left to right. So I just hold the paper by its edge. You can see how droopy it is in this direction. So that's how I want it going in my trimmer. If you look at my instructions, you can see that that's where the arrow points to, left to right, so the paper should dip easily in that direction. Now we're going to make some card bases first, so I'll cut at 8.5, and then rotate and trim at 11, and 5.5. And then you get 4 card bases. I'm going to set these aside to be scored, and then I'm going to take this narrow little scrap that fell off the edge and trim this at 6 1/4. And this I'm going to set aside in a separate spot for all of the materials needed to make the little box and lid. Even these little tiny pieces are used in card set B, so I'll file those away. I have 1 more strip to cut horizontally at 9 1/4. 6.5, 3 1/4, and then rotate and cut again at 3 1/4 to make a square. Square goes in pocket B. The next piece laying to the right of your trimmer, there's going to be 2 of them the same. That'll go in A if you're trimming 2 papers at a time. This rectangle goes in pocket C, and the skinnier rectangle goes in D. That's it for the aqua, and now I'm moving on to the white. This time I want the grain of the paper dipping easily top to bottom instead of left to right. Oh, by the way, you do have 2 little scraps from the last piece. This time we'll trim at 6.5, rotate, and cut at 11, and 10 1/4. Set these aside. They're going to become scored and will turn into the tray lid. Then you have a pair of really skinny pieces. I'm going to trim those at 5 1/4. And same for the other slightly larger strips, 5 1/4. Put the larger ones in pocket C and the other 2 in pocket D. It doesn't really matter which one goes into which pocket. And I do have a set of tiny little scraps I'm going to throw away. Still have a larger piece of white remaining. I'm going to cut this piece horizontally at 8.5. And this gives me some card bases, which I'll set aside to be scored. And then this other rectangle will trim at 4 3/4. File that in pocket B. And here we have some scraps. Scraps are really minimal. That's always my goal. And next I'll grab the navy. This time I'm going to have it dipping easily top to bottom. We'll cut at 11 3/4 and 7 1/2. Rotate and trim at 9. These will be scored to become the trays for our gift boxes. And then this narrow rectangular strip we'll cut at 3 3/4. Place 2 of them, because we're trimming 2 at a time again. So place 2 of them in pocket C, the other in D. Then this strip will trim at 11. And this will be scored. The smaller pieces here go in pocket D. And these 2 pieces get set aside with the other little pieces for our tray lid decor. Just bear with me. And next we have our beautiful butterflies print. The grain direction on this does not matter because we won't be folding the paper. Let's cut at 10 1/4 and 6 1/4. Rotate, and we'll cut at 9 and 4 1/2. Gather up all of these panels. There should be 4 the same size, and we'll set those aside for our trays and lids. And then the other rectangle I'll trim at 3 1/4 and place this 3 1/4 inch piece in pocket A and the other squares in pocket B. Pick up the next pieces. This is a 4 by 12 right now. We'll cut at 10 1/2 and 5 1/4. Put one of these pairs in pocket C and the other in pocket D. And then these you can set aside. Turn them over so the white side is facing up and set those aside with your lid decor. And then finally this last strip here we're going to trim at 11 and 5 1/2. Put a pair of these in pocket A and another one in B. And then you got some tiny little scraps. Now I have this sheet of cut aparts. It's a little larger than 12 by 12, and we do that intentionally so we can start out with the best sheet possible. So I want you to begin by removing just a little bit from the outside edges to match up with those cutting guides that we've included on each corner of the print. So you're just going to take a little bit off the end, and you'll end up with a perfect 12 by 12. Once the entire perimeter is trimmed away, we'll begin by placing it in the trimmer with this large butterfly here on the right. And let's cut at 9, 6, and 3 1/4. Otherwise, just follow your eye, separate each individual piece. Rotate so the butterflies are on your right, and we'll trim at 10, 7 1/2, 5, and 2 1/2. These 2 darker blue pieces go in pocket D. These go in C. And this can be set aside for decorating the lid. The next strip will trim at 11 1/2, 8 3/4, 6, and 3. These top 2 pieces, How Rare and Beautiful and Never Stop Making Wishes, those both go in pocket A. Then the other 2 that are similar to it will go in B. And then this is a small scrap. The next piece we'll trim horizontally. Make sure the word Happy Birthday is on the far right here, and we'll start at 10 and 8 and go down the even numbers. 6, 4, and 2. All right, so let's celebrate. The top 2 go in A. The next 2, pocket B. And then these other 2 go in pocket D. Finally, we'll pick up the last strip. These are your last cuts of the process. We'll trim at 10, 8, 6, and 3. All right, these two decorate the lid. OMG, you're old. Both of those go in C. And then this can go for decorating the lid. Now let's do a little bit of scoring. I'm going to tackle all the pieces that we set aside for scoring in the order they landed. So that would put us with the 4¼ by 11, and that we're just going to score horizontally at 5½. Once scored, both of these pieces can be placed in pocket B. Next, we have these rectangular larger pieces. I'm going to score them at 3/4 and 1½ inch from each outside edge. So again, that's 3/4 and then 1½, and rotate and repeat. 3/4, 1½, and so on. You can keep both of these set aside to make our boxes. Then you have a piece of white that is 8½ by 5½. We'll score horizontally at 4¼ and both of these can go in pocket A. Next, you have these larger white pieces that become the tray lid. We're going to score these horizontally at 4¾ and 5½. Repeat for the other one. Keep those set aside. And then finally, we have 4 aqua card bases, which will score horizontally at 4¼ 2 of them will go in pocket C, and the other 2 pocket D. That's all the trimming, prep work, scoring needed for the entire project, which is the cool thing about how efficient this method can be. Now, I have enough supplies here to make 2 complete boxes with these lids that are fully decorated. I'm going to distribute everything I've got here into 2 separate piles, all the same things, just dealing it all out. Each one will get 2 of these prints. Each one gets a aqua strip and a dark blue strip, 2 white, which is plain side up, 1 of the lids, and then I've even cut apart 1 of each size butterfly to decorate. So now everything I need to make my lid ×2 is all organized. So let's just make 1 together. Obviously the second one will go together the same way. The first thing I'm going to do is take the scored larger piece, this is the navy, and I'm going to remove the second vertical score line from each outside edge up to the point where I reach the second horizontal score line intersection. So I'm just taking out this dart on each side on the second innermost score line, like that. Okay, then I'm going to cut along the inside of this first vertical score line and remove this second score line from the edge to take out that entire corner. And do the same on the other corner. So again, I'm just sort of removing the score line itself from the bottom edge and from the side. And that's going to give us a long flap here in the middle and then 2 tabs on each end. What you'll do then is flip this over entirely so it's now your tabs are flying out at the top. And I'm going to repeat the same thing. Now, if you've been taking any classes with me for any length of time, we will have done this many times when we're making a basic box. So this technique can be useful for all kinds of fun projects, and you are able to adjust the sizes to accommodate just about anything. So taking out those corners, I'm repeating exactly what I did on the other end. Now I have 2 tabs and then these flaps. At this point, I'm going to fold to bury the bump or the raised area of every score line to make these long walls and to make some side walls. And then you just need to fold on the second line of each tab. Okay, with the item positioned vertically, I'm going to take my ATG, you could also use a liquid glue, and I'm going to put glue on the outside section, the outside scored area of every flap. Okay, so these are my, what I would call the long walls and the short walls. For the long walls, this is nice and easy. Just take this glued area and fold it over onto itself. That creates a double thickness for your long walls, which is really nice to have that. Then take 2 of the tabs on the end and fold them upward. And you can do the same on the other end. And then you turn those walls in at a 90-degree angle. Do you see how that forms the side wall of my box? And then these tabs get turned at a 90-degree angle. And this short flap then can go up and around those tabs to form that little tray shape that we're looking for. I've done all the measuring and all the planning ahead of time. All the scoring has been planned out so that this will perfectly hold the cards and envelopes we're about to make. So those are the envelopes. They fit right inside that tray beautifully. Next, I'm going to take this white cover piece that has the 2 score lines in the middle. And if you happen to have a corner chomper, I'm going to go ahead and round the outside corners. And it's up to you if you have a corner rounder or chomper, which radius you want to use. This time I'm using the 1/4 inch radius, or your standard corner punch. And then I'm going to take the bumps of these score lines and fold on them so that they get buried. And this paper has a lovely linen texture, so that's going to be on the outside of our project. And now I have something that looks like a spine or a book cover. I'm going to open that back up, and I'm going to select some ribbon. Now, the ribbon that's included in your kit will vary by collection. So I'm going to just choose this aqua colored ribbon and trim off 2 lengths that are 12 inches. So basically you're dividing this into thirds, and you can save the other portion for the cards. At this point I can take some adhesive, and I'm just going to eyeball this. I'm going to add some adhesive to the center edges. And ribbon does have a grain, so I'm going to try to determine which way the ribbon wants to curl and plan for it to curl in the direction where it's wrapping into a knot on the outside of my project. It's a little hard to see with this white on white here. Sorry about that. Now, what I can do is apply some adhesive to the right side. I'm not going to go completely to the edge because there is a little reveal from where the tray sits, and the tray should fit right and nicely into that area. And just make sure you don't put the tray into any of the folds. It should have a nice reveal on all 3 remaining sides. Now, from your decorative pile of items, there's going to be a printed panel, so you should round the 2 outside corners on one long edge to match the lid itself. And then I will apply adhesive to this and place that on the inside cover, and that's going to cover the tail of the ribbon closure. Then you can close it. Let's find the other nested panel and then do our decorations before we add it to the book. So I am going to add my rounded corners just on the 2 sides of this edge. And then I'm going to take this little long piece. It matches the height of the panel, and I'm going to attach this about maybe 1/4 inch from the edge, and I'm using my grid ruler to help me keep this from tipping one way or another. I have an issue with that happening. And now do you see this long piece? I thought it would be nice, rather than just throwing this paper into the bin, I'm going to apply some glue. I'm using my ruler to help me apply a straight line of glue to that strip. These are just finishing touches, right? I'm going to lay the strip against the ruler, and then that narrow strip is beautifully attached and level, which is kind of a bonus, right? And then all I need to do is just trim off the ends. Lovely. Okay, next I'm going to take my corner rounder, since I've already got this theme started, and just round 2 corners of this. Remember, that's the print, but we're going to use the plain side to our advantage. Then we have this cute little embellishment here. This is just so beautiful. And notice I have enough lead on this paper here to just tear away a thin portion of that paper to kind of recreate that torn edge I have going. I'm not sure if you're familiar with our foam adhesive circles. These were not included in the kit, but if you happen to have something like this to make it pop, that's always kind of a cool thing. I love these because they have the little tab, and you can just peel back and not have to worry about trying to find an edge. Okay, so then I can attach my sweet little popped up papillon and take a moment and just do a little rough cut of this butterfly and the other one. Now you notice that I didn't spend a lot of time on this. I just did a really rough cut. It took me about maybe a minute. I didn't get real close to the image itself. I left a little perimeter around it. And notice that now I'm bending the wing right near the body of the butterfly just to make a tiny little crease like so. At that point, you can take some bookbinding glue or your favorite adhesive and just add it to that folded area. And then I can maybe place him here and find a little happy home for this one. And that gives me a nice set of like an odd number of butterflies, 1, 2, 3, on this gorgeous lid. At this point, I can flip it over and I will add a generous amount of adhesive around the perimeter. Remember, I've already rounded my 2 corners and I can center this right onto my lid. And now my beautiful box is ready for cards. When you use the tied closure, that'll prevent the cards from falling out the sides, which is kind of nice. If this was an open-ended box, the cards would be flying out all over the place. So I can go ahead and put 4 envelopes inside my tray and go to my folder to find all the components I need for the cards. Now, out of pocket A, I can find all of these elements. And what does this make? Well, if we just distribute our 2 card bases, and then we have these 1 narrow strip, 1 butterfly panel, 1 aqua panel, 1 sentiment. How rare and beautiful you are. Let's celebrate you today. Never stop making wishes. Happy birthday. So everything you need here to make 2 cards, everything's scored, ready to go. All you'd have to do is fold the card bases in half, add a decorative strip along the edge. And for this trick as well, I do the same thing. I'll add my adhesive and then take my grid ruler. And I'm only going to do this about 1/4 of an inch from the folded edge of the card. It's kind of hard to see. I'll add this beautiful strip. I'm going to round the corners of each of these other little panels. Then I can nest them together and layer them onto the card. For a finishing touch, I can take this piece of this really sweet little thin white ribbon and make a sweet little basic bow. And I'll use a little bit of my bookbinding glue to add it to the card base. After that, you can open the card and take the inner sentiment and add it to the inside. And for a super simple finishing touch, just take one of the butterflies from the roll of washi tape we've included in this kit and add it. And let's say you could also take another one and place it on the outside of the envelope too. How sweet would that be? There you have number 1 card, and then the second one you make that matches, the same exact steps, put 1 in each of your boxes. From pocket B, we'll pull everything out and deal it into 2 separate piles. And as is my MO, I'll show you how just one of these cards comes together. And I thought ahead for you here, knowing that this is a dark colored card base. I went ahead and allocated a white panel for the inside of the card so that when you want to write your sentiment in here, you can go ahead and write it with a regular pen. Same thing for this. I'm going to add my anchoring strip onto the card, and because I know myself, I will once again use my ruler to help me find that 1/4 inch from the edge and rest the strip onto the ruler and drop it down. Same as before, I'll round the corners on the 1/4 inch setting or just with a regular corner punch. And then we'll nest these panels together. Layer them onto the card base and finish with a bow. Isn't that sweet? I love it. So you have even this tiny little scrap. Why let it go to waste? I'm going to use this. I notice I punched just 2 long edges. It's sort of my routine now. And then I can add this inner sentiment, which is perfect. With brave wings she flies. Don't know what to say or do, but just know I'm here for you. And then I can take one of my lovely little washi tapes and add that right to the inside of the card. How sweet is that? Of course, the other one gets assembled the exact same way. Put one in each box. Once again, we can deal everything out from pocket C. Just make sure you put one of each like styled item into the pile. Take one of the cards and we'll fold that in half, burying the bump of the score, as always. This is lovely, a whole full printed panel to cover the entire front of the card beautifully. And I just do like to use anchoring strips as well. So once again, I'm going to go 1/4 of an inch from the bottom edge of the printed panel. Next, I'll nest the light blue panel onto the dark blue card base and take a moment to just tear the sentiment from the cut apart. I do have some spare ribbon from my closure, so I'm just going to cut off a 2-inch piece and fold it in half like so. I'll take my mini stapler. If you have one of those, comes in kind of handy. It's just like a standard office mini stapler. And I'll put some foam adhesive circles onto the back of this little piece. Let's just attach this at an angle to our panels. And then I'll add this to my folded card base. Just this morning, I thought of you and said, OMG, you're old. So there's probably going to be just a few people that you could maybe send this to. And don't forget to add a sweet little butterfly to the inside as well. And to the envelope. Second card gets assembled the same way. And we're off to pocket D. As is our new routine, we'll do the deal. With everything distributed, as always, we'll fold the card in half, and we can once again nest a pretty little print onto the entire card base. This one also gets a narrow anchoring strip, which I'll use my grid ruler again to make sure it gets attached level. For this one, I will nest the aqua onto the navy. And you'll have a little bit of extra ribbon from your second lid. You can take a portion of that and trim it just a little wider than the panel itself. Wind the ends around to the back and secure them with a little bit of tape. I love incorporating ribbons into my cards. Then I can adhere this panel to my card base. And just take a second to tear out the sentiment from the cut apart. You can attach this with foam adhesive or just directly to the card, just depending on what you like. Now on the inside, I'm going to show you a fun little way to use a leftover scrap. So this piece is the same height as the card, so I'm going to cut a little V into it and remove a little bit more off the bottom. It looks kind of like a banner. It's just a great way to use a scrap. Then I'm going to kind of open the card a little bit so I can add this right to the top edge. And I can add my sentiment, happy birthday, using this as a little anchoring device, and come in with, guess what, an adorable little washi tape butterfly. Isn't that beautiful? Again, assemble the second one the same way, pop them into your box. Now here again are your completed butterflies boxes. Aren't they beautiful? Again, I think they'd make just a wonderful holiday gift. And if you enjoy this project and want to make more, of course, it translates very, very well to other Club Scrap collections. For example, my colleague Karen took our beautiful turquoise collection and she transformed that kit into 2 boxes with 4 cards each. They're all fully embellished with elements from the kit itself and everything coordinates so beautifully. And then I took a recent Club Scrap kit called Tropical, and I combined it with some stamps. So if you're a stamper, you can absolutely use stamps to decorate the outside and then all of the cards inside each box as well. And again, I just made 2 boxes, 4 cards each. What a wonderful thing you can give away as a gift this season. Thanks for the privilege of your time today. I hope you always learn something from us here at Club Scrap. And if you like this style of efficient project, card, or page making, I invite you as always to join us as a member of Club Scrap. Of course, you can shop anytime, but members always save. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in class again soon.